non-aligned movement, and it was debated within the United Nations and also UNESCO. Then the new World Information and Communication Order, it has grew out of the new International Economic Order, which was which has taken place in the year 1974. Then the new International Economic Order, that is NIEO, was a set of proposals put forward during the 1970s by these developing countries because they felt that they were ignored in the international media. So they have put some proposals during the meeting through the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. Okay, why they have put up this matter? In order to promote their interest by improving the terms of trade that time. So from 1978, okay. So this was taken place in 1976, and after that, from 1976 to 1978, the new World Information and Communication Order was generally called, in shorter version, it was called as New World Information Order, or it is also known as New International Information Order, NIEO. Okay. So it was associated with the United Nations, UNESCO, United Nations Scientific and Cultural Organization. Okay, starting from the early 1970s. Okay. Then mass media concerns began with a meeting of non-aligned nations in Algiers, that is in 1973, and then again in Tunis in 1976, and there in the 1976 at the New Delhi Ministerial Conference of Non-Aligned Nations. In last classes, we have discussed about this non-aligned nations, right? Developing countries who were part of the movement. So the movement was kept alive through, till 1980s by meetings of the McBride Roundtable Communication. So even though by then the leadership of UNESCO distanced itself from its ideas because it was not, unable to accept those terms and conditions or recommendations put forward by the Commission. So the UNESCO Convention on Cultural Diversity, which was held in 2005, then again, it has, put into effect some of the goals of the New World Information and Communication Order, especially with regard to the unbalanced global flow of mass media. Because classes we have discussed why this has, global communication have come up because of the unbalanced flow of information in the mass media, the depiction of the developing and the developed nation, through the mainstream mass media. And it was,
class started.
Yes. It was not supported by the USA. Okay. Can you mute yourself? See, a wide range of issues were raised as part of this information and communication order discussions. So some of these involved they were long discussions, long-standing issues of media coverage of the developing world, and also the unbalanced flow of media influence, and issues that involve new technologies with important military and commercial uses. And then the development was also likely to be, marginalized by satellite and computer technologies that. Then these issues also four major global agencies, like we discussed what are the global agencies and who were the part of those
Please, we are
organizations.
getting very disturbance here. Please switch off your mute camera. I'm sorry. I'm not getting. Please switch off your mic sound.
Okay. So most of these global agencies were based in New York, London, and Paris, which were controlling the worldwide flow of information. We have discussed what were their agencies, right? Reuters, AFP. So all these, AFP is based in Paris, France. Reuters in New York. So their reportage of the other world, that is the developing world, was limited to, just local natural disasters and wars. Okay, only the negative side of the nations were depicted in the mainstream media, and 80% of the world's news flow was controlled by these four agencies. So there was an unbalanced flow of mass media from the developed world, especially from the United States, to the underdeveloped countries. Everyone watches American movies and American television shows, right? So they were dominated even in the cultural scenario. And advertising agencies from the developed countries, through the messages in their ads, they also send profound messages to the underdeveloped world. In a way, see, this was a cultural invasion and cultural imperialism, because the control of the flow of these advertisements, okay, they were again with the major agencies from the Western or the so-called developed world. So some of the messages were also considered as inappropriate for the third world, because, as I said, they were only depicting the negative aspects or negative side of those developing nations. And also there was a radio spectrum, right? The radio waves frequencies which were allocated to the nations. It was also controlled by the developed countries. In fact, 90% of the radio frequencies or spectrum was controlled by a few countries, and most of it was used for the military purpose. Because the allocation of space for orbits for satellites, it was also a major issue that time. So developing countries, they did not have the capability of launching their own satellites also. So the problem of lack of space for future satellite launches was also a major problematic area. Then satellite broadcasting of television signals into the third world countries. You know what is third world countries, right? Developing nations are known as third world countries. So without prior permission it was widely perceived as a threat to national sovereignty that time, because they were not allowed, they were not given any permission to use those broadcast, those television signals in their countries, satellites. And then after that, the UN, the United Nations, also voted in the early 1970s against such use of broadcasts by the developed world. So use of satellites to collect information on, crops and other natural resources in the third world at a time that was, when the developing countries lacked the capacity to analyze this data, this was manipulated and misused by the developed nations. They were using these satellites, on, to manipulate and just to track the natural resources in the third world countries, not to support them, but to, destroy. So at that time, most mainframe computers were located in the United States, as you know, because it was developed nations, and there were also concerns about the location of databases on any of the information like reserves, the reservations, and the difficulty of developing countries was that it was unable to catch up with the US lead in the computers or the technology, the ICTs. So the protection of journalists from violence was raised as an issue in the discussion which was taking place. For example, see, journalists were targeted by various military dictatorships in America in the 1970s at that time. So as part of this New World Information and Communication Order debates, there were suggestions for study on how to protect journalists and even to discipline journalists who broke, the ethical standards, especially from the developed nations. So, however, the McBride Commission specifically came out against the idea of licensing journalists. That means every journalist have to follow some ethical guidelines in reporting. So the International Commission for the Study of Communication Problems, known as the McBride Commission, was appointed to study all manners of problems of communication in the world. So one of its chief tasks was to analyze communication problems in the different aspects. And then within the perspective of the establishment of new international economic order, and also of the measures to be taken to foster the institution of a new world information order. So this is the task, okay? Analyze communication problems in different aspects, and also the international economic order and the measure to be taken to, restore this new world information order, to study the flow of balance of information. So UNESCO used the concept of World Information Order rather than International Information Order, because earlier when they named the report, they named it as International Information Order. Then they changed it to World Information Order. So the change in this wording was made on the initiative of the Western countries. That means the developed world, who wish to make the connection to the demand for a new economic order. Earlier they were against, but then later they made few changes in order to suit their aspirations.
Ma'am,
Yes?
sorry for interruption. Right now, which topic we are dealing, like which unit?
No, I am just giving a overview of what is global
Okay.
communication, McBride Commission, and its report. It's in first unit itself.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, earlier classes overview. Okay, then there was this Director General of the McBride Commission. He formulated the Commission's terms of reference in 4 points. That means he gave 4 recommendations. So what are the 4 recommendations? First one is to study the current situations in the field of communication and also information to identify problems. Okay, what are the problems they are facing, and which call for fresh action at the national level. That means, yeah, the communication process has to be, disseminated through national level. Then you have to take it to international level, like developing countries. What are the developing countries? Who are the nations who are facing these problems? So nationwide, and then you have to take it to international level. The overall approach to the international level. Then the analysis of the state of communication in the world that was prevailing throughout the world during that time, and particularly of information problems. Like what are the problems in the information? Because now information is free. We can, through the development of ICTs, we can get information anywhere and anytime right now. But those days, gaining information and database was problem because it was controlled by the developed nations. Okay. Then also, they also recommended to take account of the diversity of socio-economic conditions and levels and types of development through each nation. Because every nation have different types of socio-economic condition, and the levels and types of development is also different. Then again, the next recommendation was to pay particular attention to problems relating to free and balanced flow of information in the world. This is the main thing why this commission was set up. Okay, free and balanced flow of information. See, and also they wanted to pay attention to the specific needs of developing countries, right, in accordance with the uh, decisions made by them, because developed nations have to support this developing nations. Okay. Then again, the next recommendation was to analyze communication problems. Like what are the problems in communication in different aspects, right? With perspective of establishment of this so-called new international economic order, the NIEO, and also to the measures to be taken to foster this new world information order. Like how to bring forth this new world information order. And also next recommendation is to define the role from which communication might play an important role, like making public aware of the major problems the world is facing. Okay, and also in sensitizing it to these problems, how people, generally sensitize themselves, how to identify, and also helping gradually to solve them by, solving all these issues at the national and international levels. So these were the recommendations made in this Many Voices and One World, the report. So see, one of the countries, which is China, refused to be a part of this commission earlier. Then see, nothing like this on the scale had ever happened before, right? Because the studies ranged from conceptual analysis earlier, because US earlier refused to be a part of the commission. Then later, China also refused to be a part of the commission. But later, they agreed and they joined. So thus, we can say this McBride Commission had a major impact on the international communication as well. Okay, understood? McBride Commission and the report.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any doubts? Anyone? Okay. See, this report also treats all kinds of information and communication, right? From communication, from interpersonal communication to mass communication. And also now we have digital communication from right from local, national, and international points of view. And the fifth part of the book, this fifth part is the conclusions and recommendations. So this conclusion and recommendation part offers some roughly about 80 policies and recommendations of the problems which have been studied by this commission. Okay. Now we have been discussing about developed nations, developing nations, and also we have come across a new term called as third world. So what do you understand by third world? What is third world? Is anyone? What is third world? The third world is a categorical label which is used to describe states that are considered to be underdeveloped. Okay. Why underdeveloped? See, in terms of their economy or the level of, their industrialization, globalizations, or we can say the standard of living, like in terms of health, education, and other criteria for which is required for the advancement of the nations. So this is known as third world. In short, developing or underdeveloped nations are known as third world nations. So the name third world, it arose during the Cold War, which refers to nations that did not belong to the what we call similarly termed like first or second worlds. First world in the sense developed nations, second world is the developing nation. And then, so there is a debate over the appropriateness of the term, because many people, many nations also were disappointed with the term. Like they didn't like to be, termed or called themselves as third world nations. Okay.
Ma'am, in
Yes.
global communication, we are dealing with the block 1 unit.
Yes, yes. I'm giving an overview of McBride Commission and its report, Many Voices and One
No,
Word.
actually, in which unit it is there, ma'am? I'm searching from that.
It's in first unit.
No, global communication. First unit, basic concepts, no?
Yeah, in that we have Many Voices and One McBride Commission report, right? So that I'm explaining in brief. Because many of you has missed earlier classes. So
Yeah, but I'm not getting the topic that is why I'm asking you. In first unit also I'm searching. Under international communication, we are having basic concepts of international communication. Huh? So in this unit only we are having this.
okay. See, I'll, at the end of the class, I'll explain you in brief, like what all you have missed, starting from the basic global communication. So right now, you just listen to this report which I'm discussing. It's not
No,
there in brief, but I'm discussing for
wait.
your
It's
understanding.
not there in the book. Okay, briefly you can.
Okay. So basically, this report dealt with how these third world nations were depicted in the international media, international press. Okay. So you understood, right, what I am discussing?
Yeah, but I was searching from the reader, but I'm not getting that. Virtually, I can't understand.
See, this new world information order, it has raised fundamental issues about the freedom of press, especially in the uh, Western media or Western press. So these third world countries directed at what they perceived as what is inequities in the flow of information. That means unbalanced flow of information, and then also news and also communication technologies. So they believe that there was negative reporting on their international conditions and policies. So the US, the United States, on the other hand, they saw the demands for a new world information order as a direct threat to uh, the principle of free press and also the access for media organizations to developing countries. Because that time it was majorly dominated by the US, the developed nations. So major media organizations were mobilized to fight this initiative. So until the mid 1960s, the focus of debate in UNESCO was about this free flow of information and use of mass media to build modern societies in this third world. So the main aim was to help these underdeveloped nations, okay, to build themselves. See, with the New World Information Order, it changed just from free flow to the dominance of the Western media and news agencies. How they were dominating. So the Western press and the Western news agencies, they were charged with cultural dominance and imperialism. Cultural dominance in the sense we discussed in earlier classes, like how the West has been dominating no, the through with the advent of globalization, how there was cultural dominance and imperialism in the developing nations or the underdeveloped nations. So they preferred that the Western news agencies and media displayed the positive news which were disseminated by the third world government agencies. And also they charged that the information about the third world countries, they emphasized their instability, and also they suggested that the economic imbalances, they come not from the colonialism or uh, or their own inability to sustain the development. So these third world countries, they argued that the distorted, the negative treatment of their problems in the media, they also neglected facts and real issues facing their nations. It was not at all shown. All the facts were distorted, and then they were neglected by the media. And also they were hindering their attempts to development, because constantly showing negative image of all these nations, they hinder the development process of these uh, developing or underdeveloped nations, which they are struggling to cope up with, right? They are trying their best to develop themselves. So these third world felt that there was a need for global change in telecommunications, then the news flows, or their intellectual property rights which they own, and also advertising. Okay, they also fail to see this. The West, they fail to realize that their duty toward what are the duty towards the third world nations, right? It is a disguised attempt to tighten on them, or hold the grip and depict a negative image, to show a negative image of these third world nations in the international media in the name of freedom of information. So Western control over the flow of information then constituted a form of colonialism in the eyes of third world. And also thus they represented a direct threat to the national sovereignty of these developing or underdeveloped nations. Okay. So these Western media organizations, they were employed to specifically dump negative news materials and information when reporting, and they were asked to develop the positive. showcase the positive aspects, the achievements, right? The developments which have been taking place in these nations. See, you know how you are aware how Africa is depicted, how Africa is depicted in the international scenario. What is the image? It is basically negative, right? It is depicted in a negative scenario, like based on like it is a poor country, there is poverty, malnutrition, health issues. So this is reportage is mostly being done in the international media, but it's not true. If you see, there are many positive aspects as well, right? Understood? Any doubts? See, there are many international organizations. There are international media organizations in the mainstream media, which is which depicts, which is neutral, which depicts the stories. They tell, what is going on. We have Al Jazeera, BBC. BBC is an independent organization. So they report every major development objectively and fairly. There are very few, there are certain sections of the Western media which depict development objectively and fairly. So true to their up and down from one, we have this issues of India-Pakistan relations, how it is depicted in the media, like how India depicts Pakistan, how Pakistan is depicted in Indian mainstream media. This is also one issue. See, the point is that BBC and many other prominent Western newspapers or mainstream media, they are fair and they, in the pretext of balancing the story, they are they report neutral. They don't take any stand. Okay, there are many stories, many case stories, incidents which is reported objectively and fairly. So I'll give some case studies also. So here, see, fear also plays a great role in the Western media's approach to the third world. Because, see, there are some challenges which are faced by international journalists. So what are the challenges? See, the first challenge is to get started in the field, right? Most of the time, journalists are also not well versed with foreign affairs. So they have to move past the culture shock. That means they are going to different land, different countries. So they experience some culture shock and confusing situations to become knowledgeable, right? They have to face many struggles. And most journalists, they prefer learning from scratch than arriving at the foreign location with preconceived notion. They have to change that because the reality is different. Then the next challenge is developing developing rapport with the people. So common to both journalists and the sources. Then how they manage by either taking what we can say, the responsibility of their job, and there are obstacle of that stress and burnout also. See, people are uh, the foreign correspondents, they are living in different land, decades of living away from their home or away from the family. Then they have this task of meeting their deadlines, right? So see, they have to meet deadline after deadline, which takes the toll on their health. So hence shifting the job, the place of work, it becomes more of a necessity to maintain their sanity, right? Then the next challenge for the journalists is the gender or the racial bias, which is faced by people and also minority journalists by working in different land or overseas. So representatives of both these groups, they said that the status was more of a help than hindrance in reporting. That means which have aided them to gain the trust of the sources in the international situations. So, and the next challenge for a journalist, international journalist, is to simply how simply tell a story, how best way they can tell a story. So both print and broadcast journalists, they debate, okay, which is better. Like, for example, if a feature would be better, or a concise or factual, actual facts of the story. So in the end, it seems a mix of, see, everybody would like to read a feature with concise and factual accounts of the news, right? So uh, they have to decide which is the best for capturing the attention of the audiences. See, now these days, the hunger for more news is increasingly satisfied by these websites. We have so many websites now with the advent of ICTs. More and more people tend to prefer the internet over newspapers, right, for learning and also to know about what is going on abroad. So even when there are thousands of correspondents abroad, are there enough of them? See, always the answer would be no. Okay. See, Western world is interested in knowing about the third world. So even though we have channels like CNN, which has actually increased the number of correspondents abroad, here more and more media organizations, they now rely on the websites for the world news. Like, so we have correspondents, right? We have foreign correspondents are reporting from a foreign country. See, it's a challenge for any journalist, but the initial confusion and the isolation felt when thrown in a unfamiliar situation can be daunting. So all these obstacles affect the journalists while reporting the stories. Okay. See, when writing for the web, these days people, youngsters, mostly youngsters, prefer websites for no, rather than newspapers or television channels. So, see, in reporting on the day's events, journalists, they rely most fundamentally on two key relationships. Okay. So the relationship with the news sources and with the audiences. So these two relationships matters a lot for any journalist. So these relationships are most fundamental for at least. See, first, without reliable sources, a journalist cannot get the facts needed to prepare a story, right? Then secondly, the audience is also important. Without the audience, there is no point in telling the story. So third and the most important is maintaining integrity in the relationships between journalists, their sources, and their audiences. Okay, it is fundamental to establish and also maintain the credibility or of journalism and the real value a journalist has. Okay, see, when the integrity of the reporter and the source and the audience, these three relationship is violated, and not only does the individual journalist suffer, but the credibility of the entire news organizations or even institution is damaged. Right? See, the reporter who gets too close to a source can sometimes fail to ask the tough question. And the question that needs to be asked and answered to fully inform the public. So in the last semester, we have learned, right, the relationship between the reporter source and the audiences. So here convergence is transforming the reporter source relationship, okay, by introducing more technology into this equation. So how was the scenario prior to this convergence? There was telephone, right? Telephone was used to set up interviews, right? And you need to identify with the tone, the sense of the tone. So some sources, the dealers, reporters, we have a written communication, right? Including press releases. But most reporters, they generally, they disregard this type of document or communication because sometimes they term it as public relations. So the rise of this computer mediated communication, right? We have like what is the computer mediated communication? Email, right? See, when on deadline, reporters may take whatever means they can get to reach a source, and that may often be an email, right? So expert sources here, especially those in expert fields, sophisticated fields also such as science and medicines, or in higher education, they may have strong preference for email communications. So they may like to respond through email and may specifically request that a source contact them via email. So particularly if they want a timely response. So reporters, they rarely leave their desk, right? They are sitting on their computers or laptops doing almost all their reporting either via email, phone, or other internet-based technologies, the ICTs. So on the other hand, email communication can provide certain improvements to the reporter-source relationship. And this is also helpful for the journalists with tight budgets. Okay. The fact checking is also very important in international reporting. See, but doing fact checking over the phone necessarily limits what can be done on deadline, right? So it also reduces the chance of error detection, because since there are many sources who will not actually see what is written and they may not catch them, so you have to get it fact checked over a phone call or through a email and verify the details. And also there is a danger that if the report is critical of the source or that of an organization, the source may take legal action to suppress the report. So a journalist have to be very careful in that. And also technology has also given reporters greatly, to expand their access to entire classes of source material. Then previously, it was not so. So for example, see, reporting to conflict, it's also a very sensitive issue. So here also, you have to get your fact check done. Okay, any doubts? You're able to get it? Yes, is there any doubt?
No, ma'am, no.
Okay. See, reporters, they should always bear in their mind their function. Like the main function is to report. That means they cannot afford to get sidetracked into, changed conversations with readers or sources. Okay. Or they should not worry about the consequences of a story to the extent that they distort the information. So journalists maintains a fine balance between telling the public what it needs to know. See, even when the truth may cause hurt or pain to anyone, irrespective of all those things, and a journalist has to be responsible and ethical in reporting and respecting the laws of the nation. Okay, that is specifically for international reporting. See, these days audience expectations are also evolving, right? We have so many news via the internet, right? And the flow of information is instantaneous, right? It is media rich and it is highly interactive. Here, audiences are increasingly accustomed to the demanding news that is customized to their interests, that is from the websites. So most reporters still rely on personal interviews and observations, and also they often rely sometimes on the internet material also, right? When they are working on strict deadline, so including fact checking is also done through internet, through reliable sources. Okay. Any doubts here? Can anybody tell me what is global communication? We have been discussing all these things as part of global communication, right? So what is global communication?
Global communication is an international communication that practices across the international borders, which is maybe in terms of political, economic, social, or military concepts,
Political and
cultural, and military concerns
Yeah.
that changing the rules of international relations.
So
Maybe
you know what is globalization, right? So global
Global,
communication. Yeah.
yeah, can I, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Global communication means it's referred to the exchange of information and ideas across the national and international boundaries and facilitated by the technology like the internet, media, telecommunication network, or whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. Good. So this is global communication, and global communication, why it has taken place and when it has taken place. Any idea? Global communication have taken place after the advent of globalization. You know what is globalization? You understand, right? What is globalization? Anyone would like to answer globalization?
expansion in terms of technology, the advanced techniques, including ICT integration and all.
Hmm.
Globalization includes the development in a sophisticated um, that term can be the explosions of expansions of
Globalization is the process of increasing international relations, ma'am, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Coming
countries
together
and
of different countries, different resources, right?
yeah, different countries and economics, cultures around the world.
Yeah, which have allowed people with diverse backgrounds, cultures to interact freely in a single platform, right? Globalization. Do you agree?
Yeah.
We have trade. Yeah, we have this LPG. You know, liberalization, privatization, and globalization, which has taken place post 1990s.
Yeah.
You understand, right?
Ma'am, in a simple way, we can say,
What is globalization coming together? Yeah, on a single platform to interact freely. Yeah, to foster, and yeah, of course, the main aim is to foster development here. So, can you say what impact does globalization have on media?
Technology wide, ma'am.
You know what is media, right? The whole way, modern communication, media, television, cinema, radio.
ma'am, they can connect
what
globalization that they can generate their own content and on internet, which may be impetus to alternative media. Like some connection will be there between the global media, which may be easier for people.
There are a lot of benefits are there, madam, for sharing technologies, new discovery, new invention, everything we can show through globalization platform, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. And also, have you heard about FDI? Foreign direct investment?
Investment, yes. FDI, correct.
Yeah.
That is also through globalization only we are doing, yes.
In these foreign ownerships, okay, they can bring you
What you
important
said that LPG
investment.
also, it is better.
It's also a threat, right?
Correct, madam.
It can bring some inward investment to the country in the media and in other fields also. So these are the, now no country can isolate themselves from these new trends, right? And it is always driven by technology and the market, because media industries are everywhere, right? It is diverse. So you know what you understand, right? What is the degree of FDI? There can clearly be no universal formula for what degree of foreign ownership is acceptable or desirable for any country. Though there are certain policies like how much percentage is allowed, but it should also ensure that foreign ownership should not transfers the interest, culture, and heritage of the country, of the host country. You agree?
Yes, madam. Correct.
So have you heard about media imperialism? Media imperialism.
Imperialism.
Once explain, madam. Please explain.
Yeah. See, cultural imperialism we have earlier discussed what is cultural imperialism. Then we have media imperialism. Cultural imperialism in the sense, see, the dominance of Western culture on the overall culture. This has been depicted through media. See, for example, in India, so how India is affected by the foreign culture. Any examples? The changes in the lifestyle, food habits, the dressing sense, right? What is the tradition of India? Indian tradition?
Ma'am, the Indian tradition is the following and the implementation of the along with livelihood of the livelihood is to the nature.
Yeah. So you are aware of our tradition, right? Indian tradition. In Indian
Yes, yes.
tradition, some basic examples: we eat with our hand, we respect food. So now, what is the effect advent of with this cultural imperialism? Now we eat with forks, spoons. Okay, even the food habits have changed. The typical Indian breakfast scenario have also changed, right? What we used to have in breakfast, typical Indian food, right? Idli, dosa. Now people are having
The instant foods also we are
various.
adopting.
Yeah, what are the changes you have observed as part of Indian culture? What changes have you observed? Saris, okay. People used to wear saris as part of tradition, right? Indian Airlines also, earlier Indian Airlines also, they used to have a custom sari as a that dress code for air hostesses. Now everything has been impacted. This is known as cultural imperialism. There is dominance of Western culture on the overall culture and tradition, right? So in the same way, this is media imperialism. That means the media, especially if you talk about our country, it is being dominated by the Western media. We have so many adaptations of Western shows, right? Indian Idol is been adapted from the reality show American Idol, right? We have another popular reality show, Big Boss. It is an adaptation of
Big Brother.
Yes. So there are so many examples, right? You see the content, if you watch the content, many movies and shows have been adapted from the Western
That is
media. Why do we think why people are why Indians are or other countries are adapting to all these Western because they think that because of the popularity, right? The reach and popularity of these shows, books, whatever it is, the content. So they think that if we adapt, it will be more successful. Not that we are running short of our own ideas,
ma'am, based on TRP,
but
that
this is the overall TRP is in their country, right? But yeah, the thought, the initial thought, what people, the mindset of the people.
okay.
Mhm. So this is media imperialism, the dominance of the Western media or the Western culture, imperialism. Okay. See, media, everyone know it's a unique product and which shapes how people think and behave. So it is a product of culture which also shapes the culture, right? How people think about culture. See, when one considers that media shapes culture and that we have this American culture, it is largely in control of media globalization. So we can conclude that media globalization is an imperialistic effort on the part of these media conglomerates. And right? Media conglomerates who are media conglomerates who own more than people who own more than one media, one form of media. See, multinational media corporations, they produce products which maximize their profits while also decreasing the cost of production. So globalization has made it easy to shift production to low wage and in a very effective manner, easy to play off with you know with a budget, just easily adapting the shows, whichever just changing the script. See, jobs which might usually have been performed locally are now it is been shipped internationally and it is also performed at less than half the cost. Because corporations are increasing their profit by cutting costs and selling. People are also selling their scripts to international audiences. Not only in the entertainment sector, but in all the major sectors, news. See, we think that these are all the benefits of media globalization, but it is very difficult to see the consequences as well, right? What are the consequences? Because here, what are the consequences we just discussed, right? The first consequence is the dominance of Western media, dominance of Western culture, right? Which is shaping the thought process of the people, of the entire society. It's to construct an audience of a particular type, right? One that is addicted to a certain lifestyle or with all those, artificial wants. What are the artificial wants we have phone? We can give an example of iPhone, right? It's just an artificial one. Every time a new series come up, people are addicted, right? It's a trend. See, it's the wealthiest minority within these countries who defines the content of the media and then thereby they influence the culture around the world. Because this global media market is mostly dominated by the US. And these multinational corporations are becoming increasingly, they're horizontally integrated. That means these companies, both they create content and their own publishing companies or broadcasting networks. And then what they do is they distribute their product to different countries. And then also these international and free market policies they have created a climate that have been, very decisive to this foreign investment in India. it looks good, it sounds interesting, but it is a threat to the economy, foreign, investment, the ownership, foreign ownership of media. It is threatening the local culture by encouraging foreign investment in the local media. Understood? You're clear? Yes, the number of media organizations or media vehicles increases. So also so does the competition in the open market also increases. This increase in competition has, it has not led to an increase in content diversity. That means the same content is been, adapting and it is circulated. Instead, see, media content or media products have become standardized, right? Just to fill a profit formula, as Nafisa said, TRPs. So all these media organizations compete with each other for their share of audience share or TRP. Even news stations, news channels have taken up this profit formulas, right? The mainstream media. So one of the consequences that there is lower quality of journalistic content in this thing, in the news organizations as well. So we can say that majority of majority of all media is owned by very small percentage of wealthy corporations, the media conglomerates, and local media is being swallowed alive by these conglomerates, right? And also another consequence is that freedom of speech is threatened by these multinational corporations or conglomerates, because they drown out the voice of local media with their profit maximizing formulas. They need just TRP. So media moguls, the conglomerates, have the most to gain from this globalization of media, because the power is concentrated and they have merged, right? Often with companies that are unrelated to the media field. So naturally, the political ideas and bias can be seen in the reportage, okay? Understood? Any doubt? This globalization of media?
No,
Ma'am, one more thing, the consequences of Western media influence or in Indian media, I think loss of our local authenticity, right?
Lots of?
Loss of our local authenticity, like what we call the Indian media content, it may be very privatized and westernized narratives and aesthetic of religious. Why? Because we are hoping for local authenticity. We are not narrative loss of authenticity.
Yes. And do you think this is a threat to freedom of speech? We see that we always say that we are a free media, democratic media. So
Yes.
isn't it a threat to our freedom of speech?
Uh-huh.
So, okay. Any doubts?
Madam, can you explain in the sense of media what is globalization and what is globalization?
Okay. Globalization, as we have discussed earlier, it is coming together of different nations for development purpose, be it
Okay.
in any field. So globalization is coming, making the content, or if you are talking about media scenario, localization is making the content in local ways. Like localization in the sense,
Can
going
you
to
understand?
make that local. For example, if you are reporting from Telangana, Hyderabad,
Yeah.
so you have to make that customize that news from the local point of view, from the local level.
So can I understand which is influenced by the global media?
Yes, of course. Everything is influenced by global media, just with some adaptations and customizations. That's it. If you
Okay.
observe any news
After
channel,
adapt,
local news
after,
channel,
So after adoption, which is influenced and which is utilized in local, that is called
Local,
localization.
yes, localization. And
Correct,
see,
madam?
we have this many mainstream media channels, like we have Aaj Tak. This is a product of Star, right? Star TV.
Yeah.
Then we have local channels there, like Star Ma, Star Telugu. We have
So many, yes.
we have Z also. Here we
Correct.
produce local news, right? How, see, the same news is been localized from the regional point of view. It depends on the audiences. Customizing the content in a local format based on the audiences, based on who are your audiences, based on the news values. And it is mostly by proximity. You are aware of the news values, right? What are the news values? So one of the main important news value is proximity. So localization gives the importance to the news value proximity. That is the nearness. Depends on the audiences. Are you clear?
Yeah, madam.
Yeah. I know it's difficult to understand because this is the first class you are attending. You have missed the earlier 4 classes, right? Let me know if you have any doubts in between. But later, after completing the syllabus, we'll discuss, all the syllabus in brief. Don't worry, we'll do it.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, we'll discuss later everything. Okay, what are the? You have understood the subject, right? What is global communication?
Yes, sir.
You don't search in textbook. I'm explaining in brief so that you should gain some insight into the subject. Later, I'll tell you what are the page numbers. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Actually, I was worried, is it related to third sem or it is related to like fourth sem? I was.
No. This is global communication only, just in the pretext of understanding.
Okay.
Because last 4 classes, only 3 to 4 students were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Want to discuss anything or?
No, ma'am, actually, we are having 1/2 an hour break. Then we are continuous classes for this 1 to 2, 2 to 3, like this.
Okay. Okay, then we'll discuss in next class. Okay.
No, continue,
We can
madam.
go for this is break time. No?
Okay, madam. Let us take break, madam.
10:30. So 10:30 onwards, we are from like. So we need some rest.
Yes, okay. You can take a break. When is your next class? From 1?
It's from 1 o'clock on.
Okay, no problem. Go for break.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Okay,
Take
madam.
care.
Bye, madam.
Bye.
Madam ji, bye.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.